So if you're in America, you're already accustomed to the idea that the mainstream media deliberately mislead you. Why? Because they want to destroy independent media, because they are in alliance with centralist state and corporatist imperatives, and because they do not want dissenting and opposing voices.
The big magazines, the newspapers, the TV stations, the radio stations for that matter, all of whom had a monopoly on this kind of information flow, are so dead to people under 30 that it's as if their death isn't even noticed.
Alex Jones spread a conspiracy theory that the Sandy Hook shooting was a hoax and that the dead children were crisis actors. Heslin's son is this boy, Jesse, among the 20 children and 6 school staff murdered in the shooting. His photo displayed as you see in the courtroom today.
For disinformation, given the massive following you have, and encourage people to take action against a caricature and description of who had perpetrated this, which was simply untrue.
In a world where you can't trust anyone, can you trust the person that's telling you to trust nobody? Food for thought.
Just to clarify, these are the words of Donald Trump.
Grow up and stop being fake news. He never said bleach.
Okay. Today's episode, as you can tell, if it's not very obvious, we'll be talking about misinformation.
These types of social media misinformation campaigns can spread what has been called genocidal propaganda. For instance, against the Rohingya in Burma, triggering mob killings in India.
What is misinformation? How is it grown? Who are the biggest perpetrators of it? How do we combat it? Also, we'll be going into what sparked this idea for me. Where did that all start from? But before we get into that, I'm going to need you to do what I ask you to do every week, every episode. Welcome to my 50th plus episode. And that's please like, comment, share, and subscribe. If you're subscribed already, put into the comments what you liked, what you disliked. What would you like to hear me talk about next? If you are not subscribed, subscribe. Why are you not subscribed? Do you not like me? If you don't like me, put into the comments why you don't like me. Try not to be too harsh. And if you dislike the video, put into the comments why. If you like the video, also like the video. This all helps the engagement, it all helps to grow the channel, and it all helps get me out of the fields. Without further ado, let's get into the episode.
Dis and misinformation are essentially two different types of bad information. And the difference between the words is the intent behind it. So when we talk about disinformation, we're talking about bad information that is spread with the intent to deceive or manipulate someone. And misinformation is bad information that doesn't necessarily have a bad intent behind it. So it's bad information that can be spread naively by somebody who doesn't know that it's incorrect.
So when I was doing this episode, I've kind of struggled with this starting point. Where do I start? How do you discuss misinformation? It's such a big and broad topic. When you look into some of the research, it seems to appear that some of the origins of misinformations have dated back to the beginning of media, really and truly. In 1835, the Sun released information to the news stating that there was life on the moon, which was, as we all know, fabricated, a lie, a fugazi.
It's all a fugazi. You know what a fugazi is?
No, fugazi. It's fake.
Yeah, fugazi. It's a wazi, it's a woozy, it's a...
I also thought about starting it in 2016, where you had the referendum in the UK, and you also had the 2016 election with Trump versus Hillary, which would have been good talking points to start where the age of misinformation, the post-truth age that we lived in, could have been. However, the issue with starting it those were episodes in of itself, and they didn't really tackle the large-scale issue of misinformation. And misinformation really begun to gain its own name and its own mutation in the COVID pandemic era. But that wouldn't be cool for me to start there either. I thought I would start with a rant. And that rant is Love Island. Yes, Love Island.
I'm a Barbie girl living in a man's world. I should feel lucky just being their understudy. I'm a Barbie girl, don't stand a chance in this man world. Imagination, life is your creation.
This is why we should be proud of our country, according to The Sun.
But like, I didn't actually say to her before she went anything. I didn't say
I like anything, right? I like me old eye going, all right, me old eye.
He's the most lovable person on it.
I can't wait to get at him, is he got a kit up, what a...
It's not Love Island anymore, it's Like Island.
Can we have one more
than any other words, weren't there?
But there's no arguing that the Love Island contestants on their own admission are a good-looking bunch.
With their chiselled bodies and reports that one of the islanders, Megan, has had potentially £40,000 worth of surgery to make herself look more attractive. Are the islanders giving young people an unrealistic view of what beauty really is?
Well, last week, Little Sugar and I came up with a brilliant way of making Love Island a little bit rough around the edges.
On top of that, you've got the Love Island final coming up. So, I mean, look at these things that you've got to look forward to. Yes. Really.
Love Island in particular.
Yeah, you and I should go on. We should go on Rough Island, the pair of us.
So joining us to discuss this is Miss Great Britain, Saffron Hart, who says it's nice looking at glamorous people, and model Nicola McLean, who says it gives young viewers unrealistic expectations. Very good morning to you both. Nicola, does it actually give them expectations, or is it just that it gets great ratings, partly because they're all so beautiful? I mean, beautiful people, as you can testify, do exist, and it's nice to look at them.
Oh, absolutely, and I mean, I love Love Island, I'm a big fan, but I just personally think that, yes, I've got a 12-year-old son, and I do think that watching a show like that, not that he does, but, of his age group, people are watching it, and of course older, and I think that it is giving them the idea that you have to look a certain way, in order to find love, to be beautiful and to get on. Now, I know I sound hypocritical as I sit here with double G boobs, but I'm very honest about what I've had done.
You see, the hypocrisy, the unmitigated gall, the temerity.
The temerity, the unmitigated gall, the blasphemy, the blasphemy.
Shout out to Stephen A. of ITV to talk about beauty standards while promoting the worst kind of beauty standards in Love Island and The Only Way is Essex seemed to me to be so obvious and egregious that I didn't understand why no one was talking about it. The same stick-thin, Barbie-esque figures that they promote, they were criticizing, debating. It was as if they both wanted to promote it and look like they were against it at the same time. How did we live in a world of this doublethink that was coined by George Orwell's 1984? How did we reach a space where the same perpetrator of the crime is also calling out the problem of the crime? And you find this throughout media, whether that be ESPN with Kyrie Irving, where in one sense they are attacking him and chastising him for his comment about black Jews.
And to follow up on the promotion of the movie and the book.
Can you please stop calling it a promotion? What am I promoting?
Put it out on your platform.
But I'm promoting it? Do you see me doing, do you see me in front of
putting it out there,
the
people
title?
are going to say that you are
promoting. Yeah, put it out there just like you put things out there, right?
Yeah, but it's not.
You put things out there for a living, right?
Right, but my stuff is not.
So let's move on.
Filled
let's
with
move on.
Anti-Semitic stuff.
Let's move on.
I'm not doing that.
Another
You're free to post
I can post whatever I want. So say that and shut it down and move on to the next question.
But Kyrie, you have to understand that by
I don't have to understand anything from you.
It's not me.
Nothing.
By
it's no people that you're making up, bro. Move on.
But by posting what you did.
Next question.
Anybody
do you guys have
any
more questions
and they're going to say,
you guys have any more questions? Because this is going to be a clip. This is going to be a clip.
No, he's not. He's not worth it at all. A matter of fact, let me say this straight up and down. I think Kyrie Irving should retire. I think he should announce his retirement today.
But a whole bunch of people brought up that Jeff Bezos still left that film up, okay? That was that purportedly anti-Semitic. Excuse me, what kind of traction that gets? So when you talking to the world and you bring up Jeff Bezos, who makes about $70 billion a year, okay, you criticize him. Take the film down. He didn't do it. Now what? All you can do is point out what the issue is and then go from there. In Kyrie's case, you're a player. And you want to do what you want to do when you want to do it. Who doesn't? We can't knock you for that. But the reality is that he's looking to cash a check. Bezos is cutting checks. Those who have the gold make the rules.
While in the same breath trying to defend him, saying that he's potentially being buck-beaten by the media. Who is the media? Isn't it you? It was hilarious. It's obvious, the hypocrisy, but no one calls it out. And I feel like you can't talk about misinformation without talking about X, formerly known as Twitter. Throughout the Twitter space, or the X space now, is, that sounds so weird. That sounds so weird. Throughout the Twitter space / X space. That never doesn't sound weird, does it? Anyway, throughout the space, you constantly find think pieces, misinformation, mischaracterizations, rarely challenged. And the worst one is one I saw recently about Nipsey Hussle's brother, I believe, talking about Kendrick's lack of contribution. And the thing I found so troubling about this was that it was rightfully quickly rebutted, but also came from a source that would be quote unquote reliable. And it just brought me to the thought that we are in a space that we cannot even trust people that are so-called close to the source. We need to counteract this with public statements, things that we see. You know, luckily Lauren London had gone out outright and spoke about Kendrick's particular contribution to Nipsey Hussle's funeral, and we've got videos of him performing and giving his flowers towards Nipsey Hussle on the day that he passed. And you see the height of this misinformation growing, especially in the UK sense, when you look at the recent UK riots, which is somewhat past if you're not from the UK, where the misinformation grew about the young teenage boy that killed the 3 infants being apparently Islamic migrant, which wasn't true, has been dispelled by the media. But we now live in an age where misinformation now has palpable risks as well. Not only is it partisan in the case of some political ideologies, in the case of the mischaracterization of the boy being Islamic, but you also see it being partisan in just opinions on whether it be Drake versus Kendrick, whether it be Messi versus Ronaldo. You see that so much information has become partisan. It reflects a particular group of thinking, a particular group of people who have an ideology that they're trying to push forward. What is the counteraction to that? What is the way in which you can combat that?
Audiences sense that they're not getting the whole story or even the truth from once trusted outlets, whether broadcasting cable TV news networks or national newspapers and magazines.
The Republicans say we will serve our corporate masters at all costs, including killing democracy, yet here we are. Where else do you hear that? You hear that on NBC, on ABC, on CBS. You hear it nowhere.
So if you're in America, you're already accustomed to the idea that the mainstream media deliberately misleads you. Why? Because they want to destroy independent media, because they are in alliance with centralist state and corporatist imperatives, and because they do not want dissenting and opposing voices. When it comes to the intelligence and psyops component of this, it doesn't matter whether you're a foreign combatant in the Middle East, specifically ISIS, or someone that has questions about COVID-19. You are regarded as an enemy of the centralist state and corporate media narrative, and you have to be shut down.
And you can see, and I see this so interesting too, the legacy media types they're done. They're so done. It's happened so fast. I notice among young people that the legacy media, the big magazines, the newspapers, the TV stations, the radio stations for that matter, all of whom had a monopoly on this kind of information flow, are so dead to people under 30 that it's as if their death isn't even noticed.
Alternative media is probably the space in which I'm going to have to be my most self-critical I've ever been on this episode. Yay me. However, it's a space in which has allowed many people to combat the mainstream knowledge and mainstream opinions of the legacy and media. We now know that the legacy media are tied to corporations. We're aware of not only their financial ties, but their political ties, whether that be BBC, ITV, Sky News, CNN, Fox. It's so obvious to us whether they're right-leaning or left-leaning that we cannot fully trust the words that they said. And the discernment that we now allow ourselves to have is through the alternative media, who we trust more to dispel these online X/Twitter posts and what the legacy media say. A lot of my earlier criticism in this episode was derived towards the legacy media, i.e. ITV.
Joe Biden is a disaster, and nobody's even listening to anything he's saying. So if you care a lot about politics, you're trying to focus on what he's saying, as we are, obviously. And Trump keeps saying one crazy lunatic thing after another, right? But Biden has no ability to counter it. And the whole time the split screen is killing Biden. Because he's got his mouth open, he looks confused, doesn't know where he is. He's lost his train of thought at least twice in like disastrous shape.
The president isn't telling the truth. And part of the reason I do this story is not because Obama telling that political lie there is the most important lie there is. He's told far worse ones, I think far more important ones. And not because I'm shocked and chagrined that Obama would lie, but the exact opposite. I want you guys to know, even if it's a politician you like, do they, I was gonna needlessly soften it like the mainstream media does. They always have to say, if you use a fancy word like prevaricate instead of lie, it makes you feel better, but there's no need to soften the blow. Does President Obama lie from time to time? Of course he does.
That lack of partisanship, that lack of restriction in terms of financially, they're not financially tied to a political party, allows them to freedom to criticize and double back or go further on points that typically you don't see in the legacy media, who have to appear balanced because they're in bed with both political parties or one political party in general. However, what is the problem with the alternative media?
And it's all voodoo. None of it is true that it's bad. Oh, it's so bad, right? And so, look, but I do have great sympathy for him because he believes in this stuff that, again, lives in a different world that isn't attached to reality. He said, the reason he was doing porn is because he opened himself up to spirits. You know what that means? Nothing. It means nothing. It's just gobbledygook that fundamentalists say, right? There are no spirits, so you don't open yourself up to them.
They face the same dogmatic points of views that sometimes the legacy media face, sometimes even worse because they don't have the same restrictions, sometimes not looking at the overall argument, and can fall into the echo chamber of their own thoughts and their own beliefs. You also have in the case, which I mentioned last week, but I'll mention it just quickly, in the case of Jordan Peterson, where you can see sometimes because they're so alternative to the media and they themselves have been attacked by the mainstream legacy media, that they feel the need to just go against any counter narrative that is against the mainstream media, which can be problematic itself. It's very contrarian. And the problem with being a contrarian is often you swing hard and you can miss hard. And I think in the case of sometimes Jordan Peterson, where he has brought people to platforms to articulate and speak on their particular points and ideologies, he sometimes doesn't question them, like I said last week, enough on the more problematic aspects of their opinions. And I think sometimes it comes from a place that Jordan Peterson himself has been overly criticized, chastised and attacked by the legacy media unfairly for the most part. I will use Jordan Peterson again as a place to quote. Some of his information is amazing, but he has made his mistakes. And you have people like Russell Brand who do a very good job of articulating both points of view, bringing them together, but sometimes I think can conclude and bring people in similar to Jordan Peterson who have problematic points of view. However, they are not the worst offenders, they are not terrible, but there is a criticism that they do fall to the same traps that the legacy media, the generic mainstream media, fall into too. And in the case of TYT, you can also find that they fall into the same dogma and sort of, how do I say this, dogmatic political opinions that the mainstream media can face.
No respect for women who voted for Trump, okay? Yeah, me too. I think so poorly of them, and the reason why is because, look, I don't think that you're a single issue voter. I just think you're dumb. Okay, I think you're fucking dumb. When you vote for someone who openly treats women like second-class citizens, who talks about them as if they're nothing more than a piece of meat, who has been accused of sexually assaulting them, who has been caught on tape talking about groping them and grabbing them by the pussy without consent, yeah, you're an idiot. You're an idiot, yes. Okay? You are voting against your best interests. I'm losing my mind tonight because of how stupid the majority of the country is.
And at times, in the case of Alex Jones, flat out lies.
Alex Jones spread a conspiracy theory that the Sandy Hook shooting was a hoax and that the dead children were crisis actors. Heslin's son is this boy, Jesse, among the 20 children and 6 school staff murdered in the shooting.
Not always, for the most part they don't, but the same problems arise. So, we know that the legacy media fail us. We know that the alternative media cannot fully be trusted. So what do? Well, this article, based on cognitive science, discusses the psychology of fake news, the emergence of fake news. It argues the point that political ideology could play a role into how people are attracted to fake news. However, that does not bring a substantial conclusive argument that it's really down to discernment and our brain's ability to discern truth from misinformation, mischaracterization. And typically the lack of discernment comes from this type of bamboozling that happens from the information that we are fed through social media. And that brings us to social media. See, a lot of what I've discussed is around social media. And you may even think, but you're talking about the legacy media. The legacy media is now a part of social media, very much so. And because they are more established, they have a widespread reach. Alternative media, myself included, if I even count as alternative media, react off these things. It's why when you see things go viral, people don't spend enough time critiquing even the things that we deem to be positive.
Harry, you're involved?
Yes, mate, I'm involved.
Talk to me about where and when and how.
Middlesbrough. I went up there, I travelled up there from Harlow in Essex, where I'm originally from. So I travelled up there to see, to actually demonstrate my problems of why all this is going on. Basically, all the boats coming in, all the immigrants coming in, causing problem, causing grief. That's what I'm protest about. That's what I'm fed up of, really.
Which people are you thinking of when you go on these protests?
Asians.
Asians?
Yeah.
Right, so all Asians are who you're thinking of when you think of the people causing all the problems, all the immigrants?
Asians and black people.
Right. So you drove from Harlow in Essex to Middlesbrough to protest against black people and Asian people. Basically all non-white people is what you're saying.
Yeah, because they're the main issue.
All non-white people are the main issue?
Well, from what I'm seeing.
What are you seeing? Because from where 99.9% of the rest of the country is seeing, all black people and all Asian people are not the issue, Gary.
In the UK, a radio host on LBC, goes viral for attacking a quote-unquote racist caller who seemed to dispout a lot of ignorance. However, that radio host is playing into a white savior complex. I find it interesting that most of the people during the race riot that were going viral on these mainstream outlets, by the way, were all white. Problematic in of itself. Even the language and some of the language that the radio host used was deliberately, I want to say, provocative to garner claps from a crowd that was very much ready to be on his side and very much ready to be against him. That is a very nuanced conversation and a deeper conversation about white savior complexes. Who has the right to defend people in this sphere? I have discussed earlier that the legacy media are more than comfortable of fueling the flames of whether that be beauty standards and their problems or racist and racism, xenophobic discussion points to fuel content drive and eyes to their product. They have no problem dancing their lines. And my biggest issue is that they don't discuss their own fallibility into it. Now, I understand this as someone putting out information videos out there, that sometimes you have to create catchy titles in order to get people's attention. If I had done an episode on culture vulturism and how to discern what is a culture vulture, would it have done as quote unquote well as my video on F. Traplaw Ross, he's a culture vulture? I will leave that to you to discuss that. And if you think that didn't do well, I would say relatively to where I'm at, it was an improvement, especially in the engagement category. However, I bring that up to say that we are all in the media fallible to this, like I was trying to say earlier about the alternative media. But my problem is with the legacy media is they never course correct. They never discuss where they may have been at fault for creating this space. As I said earlier with the Kyrie Irving situation, they never mention how they were part of the problem of the quote-unquote buck beating of Kyrie Irving.
Responsibility that I have, and I'm not one that usually gives a shit what anybody thinks. I stand on what I stand on. I feel the way that I feel because I pride myself in being man enough to acknowledge when I'm wrong if I think I'm wrong, because I think it's rare. But I was wrong. And for Kenny Smith to tell me that, it hit home in a big way, because we go back more than 30 years, and I can count on 2 fingers how many times he's thought I was wrong. And so his friendship, his brotherhood means a lot to me.
This can come down to, similar to what the article said, is the amount of information that we get on our feed overwhelms us so much so that we don't have the time to slow down and break down what we see. We don't have the time to work out that we are being both manipulated and lied to by the media. We don't have the time to call out hypocrisy unless you give yourself the time. Media and social media has reached a point where it overloads us with information, addictive hormone and dopamine patterns that we follow.
We've all been here before, stuck for countless hours watching YouTube, scrolling through Facebook, Instagram.
Our current social media consumption can lead us to depression, addiction, self-doubt, and unhappiness.
Because social media provides immediate rewards with very little effort required, your brain begins to rewire itself.
We have to stop giving our kids free access to social media and phones at young ages.
And that's not to be entirely dismissive of social media. Without social media, there's no chance this platform could grow. Without social media, there was no chance of me connecting with you guys. Social media is a great thing, but the psychology and the effects of social media, not just adults, but young people too, has yet to be fully discovered. Social media has not even been around for 25 years in its totality. Freudian slip, in its totality as it is of today. And we need to take our time about the amount of time we spend on social media. It's clearly created a confusion, a lack of discernment of the ability to work out what is truth, what's misinformation, and what's mischaracterized. You saw this in the most dangerous parts of COVID and the vaccine and some of the, information that was spread over there. I mean, I'm not going to sit here and say I'm someone that is, overly vaccine. But some of the information that was put out online on both sides of the political spectrum was worrying.
I'm not going to belabor this. I'm just going to tell you that for just your daily life and your gums and your teeth and for regular viruses and bacteria, the patented nanosilver we have, the Pentagon has come out and documented, and Homeland Security, and said this stuff kills the whole SARS corona family at point blank range. Well, of course it does. It kills every virus. But they found that. And then this is 13 years ago. And the Pentagon uses the product we have. The nano silver toothpaste in the super blue with the tea tree and the iodine. That's the super blue is amazing. And then we have the whitening toothpaste that has the nano silver and a lot more as well. Those are both excellent. They're at InfoWarsStore.com. They're still discounted despite all the hell breaking loose.
That's a great question. I would say the answer is not nudging, it's listening, understanding what it is people are concerned about, making sure they understand the risk of the virus. And celebrities have a role to play as well as journalists in getting the word out.
And I think in order to do this episode right, I couldn't discuss it without talking about, current race riots that was going on and some of the misinformation that had come up there and some of the sort of, playing to the crowd that I saw from the legacy media, which was my most frustrating point and which also brought about my understanding of this misinformation age that we live in, this post-truth age that we live in. There's a lot of problems with truth theories. What is truth? What can you believe?
Here's where we have the dichotomy of the UK, and I actually think this conversation is going to be one of the most important and potent conversations of modern times, especially as this issue is not going to be solved anytime soon, Piers. The problem we have now in the UK is that we have a certain subsect of the population who believe because he was born in Cardiff, he is a Welsh man. And we have another subsect of the population who believe that even if he was born in Cardiff, he is not Welsh. I'm currently in Romania. I'm an American and British citizen. The woman who I have a child with is Italian. The child was born in Romania. The Romanians do not consider that child Romanian, not by their view of the world. If I had a child in China, they would not consider that kid Chinese. They would look at the face shape of the child and say that's not a Chinese child. If I had a black child in Russia, they would not consider that child Russian. In the West, in the democracies, we do. But we have a problem because you now have you have a dichotomy of ideas, you have two different camps, and the camp that believe that this person perhaps isn't even Welsh in the first place are also the camp which are being suppressed and not allowed to speak and are being smeared and labeled as far right for having genuine concerns. And that is why things are getting exasperated and out of control.
They are sort of simplistic reductionist arguments. And you find this not only in the mainstream media, like I said earlier, but in the alternative media, and especially in the black spaces. You find often many people in the black spaces will simplify the problems of the black community to...
America comes to build a cultural empire. Everyone except African Americans. So when you travel the country, you got a little Italy in every major city. Right. You got a Chinatown in every major city. You see, you even see little Cambodias popping up now around the United States.
Martin Luther King in every city too.
Exactly. Well, you got you got a Martin Luther King Jr. Street.
Yeah, street.
You have a Martin Luther King Jr. Street,
Right.
but there's no Africa Town. There's no place in Black America you can go and find the 4 essential institutions needed for a community: bank, school, supermarket, hospital.
Classism, lack of wealth. And you found this with the mainstream media and alternative media who simplified these races as just thugs, working class thugs. And it's a very classist argument. And anyone who has any bearing of understanding of what racism is stoked into, it's stoked into the power structure. If anything, racism is a concept that benefits mostly those in the top. However, legacy media, not many in the alternative media, but especially legacy media, refuse to discuss that. And you find that sometimes in the black spaces, those black activists also fall into that classist argument, that simplistic argument that all racists are just poor white people who are disgruntled, without looking at the overall structure that what racism benefits those at the top. There's racism in the Western world, there's caste systems in the South Asian world as well, and we have to understand it from that broader perspective. It's something I should have mentioned last week, roughly went about, but not enough. And so I take the blame for that as well. However, I'm going to add this point as well, that it wasn't discussed enough. You saw from the LBC, they simplified it to just, you know, a class issue. Your dumb working class white people, they're the problem. A classist argument that was done more to divide us than anything else. And you, again, like I said, you find this too often in black spaces where people simplify arguments about the power of institutionalized racism.
Spent the last 2 decades co-opting black radical imagery, wording, icons, and y'all have never engaged with the actual work of black radicals. How is that possible?
Racism and the way around it, using the Tulsa Wall Street massacre as an example of when blackness comes together as a uniform economy, it has the power to override all these things. And like a mistake I made in one of my earlier videos is that people forget that Tulsa became a highway road and was able to rebuild itself after the massacre, and in fact was better off after the massacre financially until legislators wanted to turn it into a highway road, which may have racism to do with it. I believe it does, but those black people with wealth and businesses did not have the financial and political pool to change the overall structure of what happened in Tulsa, because institutionalized racism and the tentacles in which capitalism run is so powerful that financial wealth and classism is not enough and a strong enough debate in order to tackle this issue. I understand improving a minority community economically will improve its political standing, but it doesn't attack the problem.
So
So they destroy Black Wall Street. The poor whites, the white community in general supports this. They destroy the Black community. But what is left out of the history is that the Black people in that Black community in Tulsa rebuilt Black Wall Street. And we became an even bigger economic business community by the 1940s, okay? For the Black elite, not the Black workers, but they had rebuilt for the Black elite, was even doing better. But it wasn't until the mid-40s where the post-World War II expansion of U.S. hegemony here and abroad was taking place that the federal government came in, and they are the ones through public policy, not vigilante violence, destroyed Tulsa.
These Black elites had the money. They bought the block, literally, but they still couldn't use that economic viability and political power to make the government build a highway a few blocks in the other direction.
The reason I mention this is to talk about the lack of discernment to the information that we get online. It was only when I took my time out to really understand how some of these quote-unquote Black activists are discussing this issue and realizing that they all fall on the same conclusion and haven't discussed the overall capitalistic structure that really weighs not only the Black community down, but many minority communities down. So who can we trust? I've just spewed off for a while that there is pretty much no one you can trust. And it comes down to the only person you can trust really is yourself. And that's what the discernment is about, that everyone has the capacity, the ability, when you give yourself the time, to understand the discernment that you are capable of figuring out. It's not about political ideology. It's not about, even educational level to a certain degree. It really will come down to the amount of time you spend on social media, the amount of scrolling time you spend on your phone too. If you're spending hours and hours on your phone and you're getting bombarded with so many images, so much information, you will struggle to discern truth from facts because you're just addicted to the scrolling. And in order for you to be able to discern truth from fiction, truth from lies, misinformation, mischaracterization, incomplete information from complete information, you would need to take time. You would need time away from your phone. And we now live in a world where our relationship with our phone is quite vital. And our relationship with our phone needs to be more and more removed as we understand that social media, as brilliant as it is as a connective device and an information sharing device, is that we need time away from it to just understand what the hell we saw, what the hell is going on. And can we even trust what we saw? It's funny now. We live in a world where our phones, once upon a time, was our escape from reality. And now we need to escape our phones by reality. Wild times, isn't it? Wild, wild times. And just think about the people that are spewing out that information to you online. What do you think they stand to get? What do you think they stand to get? We live in a world where your attention can be monetized. Guard it with your life. Yeah, guard it with your life. Or at least guard it as if it matters to you, because your attention has money behind it. And with that, I give you goodbye. Thank you for this episode. I hope you enjoyed it. I enjoyed it. I always enjoy making these for you guys. Again, if you haven't subscribed and you've got this far, well done. You're in the 1%. Please like, comment, share, and subscribe. See you next week.